Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Cam, and today I'd just like to talk to you all about the Three Flavors of Cornetto trilogy. And before I go any further, I just would like to say I'm going to keep this video as spoiler-free as possible. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you have seen these movies on multiple occasions, so this might be a bit of frustration. However, I'm making this video because I want to encourage those who have not seen these movies to go see them, because I'm sure that there are lots of you that have not, and I don't want to spoil the movie prematurely. I'll talk about general stuff related to the plot, but I won't go too deep into spoilers. That'll be for another time. So with that out of the way, let's dig into these movies, and specifically, first off, talking about the creators, Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg. After these movies were released, both would go on to great success, with Edgar Wright going on to direct Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and Baby Driver, two movies that I think are among the best of the 2010s. And Simon Pegg, who would go on to become Benji in the Mission Impossible series, and would become Scotty in the J.J. Abrams Star Trek films. But before all of that happened, they were just two friends who were working together on a British sitcom called Spaced. While working on this show together, they became fast friends, and they decided, you know what? Let's make a movie. They wanted that first movie to be a zombie movie because of their collected love of George A. Romero's Of the Dead trilogy, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead. Combine that with some influences from the Resident Evil video games and other movies like Back to the Future and Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, and the result was Shaun of the Dead. For a good while, the zombie craze was everywhere, from the Walking Dead TV show to other zombie movies being created like World War Z, even down to the book World War Z, and too many others to mention. Zombie mania was running wild, and before all of that, there was Shaun of the Dead. And I believe that, in a way, Shaun of the Dead brought a lot of relevance back to the zombie genre. And like the stuff I just mentioned about the Of the Dead movies, the influence is definitely there. This movie feels like it would have been made by Romero in his prime. But what makes Shaun of the Dead different is that it's not just a bunch of people fighting off zombies for 90 minutes. There's more under the hood than just that. Underneath all of that, there is well-written dialogue, some incredibly funny jokes, and genuinely, some of the most heartbreaking scenes that I've ever seen in a movie. And I mean that without an ounce of irony or sarcasm. If you've seen this movie, I'm pretty sure you know of one particular scene in which, throughout all of these Cornetto movies, there is the theme of each character starting in one place and ending in a completely different one, with new knowledge and new wisdom. That goes double for Shaun of the Dead. There is that in the other movies, and I'll talk about that in a second. But in the case of Shaun of the Dead, both of the main characters, both Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, start in one place and they end in a completely different one, especially in Nick Frost's case. But again, no spoilers. But at the start of Shaun of the Dead, they're kind of losers. They've both lived in the same town for pretty much ever. They've been friends forever and look to be that way. Nick Frost is kind of a loser. He doesn't really have a job. He sells some weed on occasion, but that's about it. Simon Pegg is doing a lot better, but not by much. He's the manager of a dead-end electronics store, and he is definitely the oldest employee there. He's getting pressures from his girlfriend, from his other roommate, and even from his girlfriend's annoying friends to grow up and move on. But there's a part of him that either can't or won't. What better way to bring about change than a zombie apocalypse, am I right? In my research, I found that when Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg were coming up with the concept of Shaun of the Dead, they looked at it in the sense of, the world is ending, and they're the last two guys to know about it. And now that they know, this is about what they would do. And I like the spirit of that, because normally in a zombie movie, you see the immediate outbreak, and then maybe cut to 6 months later and see just everything just went to hell in a handbasket. But in Shaun of the Dead, the outbreak already happened, and it's literally like Simon Pegg and Nick Frost suffering from hangovers, and they're just like, oh, another day at the office, but they're literally missing all of the carnage that has just taken place. But at the end of the day, I think Shaun of the Dead has to be in the conversation in some of the best zombie movies ever made. Again, just go see it for yourself if you haven't. It's got incredible dialogue, some pretty stellar acting, if I'm saying so myself, especially from Simon Pegg. And it balances the combination of funny and scary all at once. It's a delicate balance, but it pulls it off like a professional. And despite it being made for a relatively low $6 million budget, it did make $30 million back. So Shaun of the Dead could be only considered a success. And based off of that success, Edgar Wright moved on to his next big thing, Hot Fuzz. The idea of Hot Fuzz came from the fact that Edgar Wright always wanted to make a cop movie. In an interview, he said that the UK was really not known for their cop movies, and so he wanted to change that. And in a weird roundabout way, Hot Fuzz became a bit of a satire of most cop movies. When it comes to this trilogy, people often consider Hot Fuzz to be the best out of the bunch. And while it is not my favorite, that'll be coming next, I do see why it is objectively seen as the best. This is actually the one of the trilogy that I had seen the least, so rewatching it for this video, I completely forgot how good it was. The cast is just incredibly loaded, not just from Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, but you also have Jim Broadbent, Bill Nye, Edward Woodward from the original Wicker Man, and the only one that counts in my opinion. You also have Timothy Dalton as the villain, James Bond himself. I mean, this cast is just stuffed to the gills with talent. And just like Shaun of the Dead, it starts out as one thing, but thanks to a twist of fate, it also becomes a completely different thing. There's a third degree to this movie, just like Shaun of the Dead. Simon Pegg's character in this movie starts out as this no-nonsense cop who says the law is the law, there's no getting around it. He's also incredibly PC. He's very neurotic about not calling someone a policeman or a policewoman, it's a police officer. It's not a traffic accident, it's a traffic collision, and just other language like that. But by the end, he drops all of that. And it doesn't happen all at once, it's all just very, very subtle. And like I said, this movie is very much a satire of other cop movies, specifically those of Kathryn Bigelow and Michael Bay. It's not in your face about it, but Nick Frost's character is a humongous action movie fan, and it shows in the actual filmmaking itself. There are two occasions, I'm sure there are more, but there are two occasions in which Edgar Wright openly takes a couple of shots from Michael Bay. Specifically, the over-the-head shot where the helicopter is flying over the top of the two main actors, and then the rotating shot, more famous in Bad Boys 2, when Martin Lawrence says, "Shit just got real." Even though everybody takes a dump on Michael Bay all the time, it's nice of me to see a filmmaker actually paying homage to him. I like that. I like the spirit of that. The first two-thirds of this movie are a truly intriguing mystery, in that when Simon Pegg's character goes to this village, he's just like, this town is perfect. Almost a little too perfect. And then the onion just keeps getting peeled and peeled and peeled until you get to the heart of the matter. And it just is like, whoa, that's big. It was upon this rewatch that I found myself relating very much this movie to The Wicker Man, the original. Not just in casting Edward Woodward, but in that movie, it starts out with a very intriguing mystery, and by the end, there is a twist that is legitimately shocking. But while the ending of The Wicker Man is very dark and disturbing, Hot Fuzz's ending is very triumphant, if that makes any sense. And the theme of letting something go in order to try and change and grow shines like a diamond in Hot Fuzz as well. throughout the entire movie, Nick Angel is a very straight-laced cop, but by the end he realizes that he has to let some of that go in order to truly make a difference. And there are also other themes of looking under the surface and being vigilant, and other things like that. I don't know. I could talk about this movie for days. I love this movie to pieces. Again, it's not my favorite of the trilogy. I think it may be my second favorite. But that doesn't mean that this movie isn't excellent, because it absolutely is. But like I said, this movie is my second favorite, because my first favorite is the final movie of this trilogy, The World's End. My memories of this movie run very deep. This is the first Cornetto movie that I saw in theaters, and it has since become my favorite. And I will hear compelling cases for Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, and I can't disagree with them. But my personal favorite always has and will continue to be The World's End. Even though I have very fond memories of it, I went into this movie for this video, to watch for this video, without my rose-tinted glasses, and this movie is just as good as I remember, and in many ways, it's even better. I feel like that this is among Edgar Wright's most personal work. This originally started out as a screenplay called Crawl, which Wright had written at the age of 21. And throughout the movie, you can kind of see Edgar Wright's feelings on I guess, branding and corporatism. Again, I'm not a film studies major, and I am not even close. But in my research, I found that Edgar Wright wanted to use the town of Newton Haven and Gary King and the rest of the guys returning to their hometown and them feeling like strangers. There's an opening montage in The World's End in which you see all of the pubs looking very distinct and different. And when the main characters return after being away for 20 years, everything just kind of looks the same. Again, I won't go into spoilers, but essentially the movie kind of edit that out. Again, no spoilers, but essentially this movie tells the story of how, over time, things become more homogeneous. To quote Wright in an interview he did for The World's End, quote, "This doesn't just extend to pubs, it's the same with cafes and restaurants. If you live in a small town and you move to London, when I did when I was 20, then you go back out into the other small towns in England, you go, oh my god, it's all the same. It's like Body Snatchers. Literally, our towns are being changed to death." That theme runs throughout the entire movie. The trademark excellent dialogue is all throughout this movie. I could pretty much quote this movie line for line if I really wanted to. But unlike Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, the roles of Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are reversed here. Normally, Simon Pegg is the straight man and Nick Frost is the goof-off. But now, Simon Pegg is the goof-off and Nick Frost is the straight man. It really does show the versatility of both of these guys to go from slobs to snobs in like that. Again, like Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, you think The World's End is going in one direction, and then something happens, and once that something happens, everything just is turned completely on its head. I cannot talk about this movie enough. This is a movie that I frequently think about and go back to watching every so often. Like I said, I can quote this movie from memory, like literally from opening line to closing line. Like, pick a scene, any scene, and I can pretty much recite it, with performances and all. Yes, I'm one of those people. And at the end of the day, The World's End remains my favorite of the Three Flavors of Cornetto trilogy. Even though I consider Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End to be 1A, 1B, and 1C. I think all of these movies are excellent. Most comedies I tend to find really frustrating because they all tend to be just, well, one-note jokes. They either tend to be just raunchy for the sake of being raunchy, or just about two unlikable people, or more, if there is more, just getting themselves into situations that I just don't care about. The Cornetto trilogy not only makes you think about stuff, but it also makes you feel as well. It pleasures both the head and the heart. You can look at this from a filmmaker's point of view and just admire the brilliant cinematography and the themes throughout. You can examine said themes as well as how they relate to our world and how we feel as humans. Or you could see them as two hungover dudes fighting the zombie apocalypse, one tough-as-nails cop and one kinda so-so cop taking on a corrupt town, or as five friends who reunite to remember their past for one night and getting into more that they bargained for. It doesn't matter how you look at these movies, it's all correct. I will stand by, and I don't tend to make statements like this, but I will make this sweeping statement now. I think the Three Flavors of Cornetto trilogy is the best comedy trilogy ever made. And until something else comes along, then I'm going to stand by that. I know that at the minute, both Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright are busy with their own things. Simon Pegg is currently working on Mission Impossible, and Edgar Wright is making One Night in Soho and other standalone movies, and that's totally fine. But I hope they can get the band back together again, because if they make another Cornetto movie, I will be there like day one. Day one. So if you haven't watched these movies, by all means, go and watch them. And then after that, pop off to the Winchester, have a nice cold pint, and wait for this whole thing to blow over. But that is all for me, guys. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. Throughout this week on the channel, I'll be dropping 3 AFI project videos. One for Tootsie, one for A Clockwork Orange, and one for Saving Private Ryan. And then this coming Sunday, I'll be making another installment in my I Finally Watched series, where I talk about the Ghibli film Pom Poko. But if you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and if you like this video and you want to see more like it, hit the subscribe button and click the bell to allow notifications. That way, when a new video drops, you'll be the first to know about it. My name is Ryan Cam. I'll see you in the next one.